What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Friday, March 3rd. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, we're going to get back on track here tonight. Spent a lot of time doing research. I'm focused. Those distractions that I had yesterday are gone. So let's get into this slate. We have a 10-game NBA slate here tonight. So at the point guard position, I like Devin Booker. I like Josh Giddey. Both those guys have good matchups. Josh Giddey coming off of a 50 fantasy point day yesterday in 34 minutes. And he's not on a back-to-back. And the Utah Jazz give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing point guards. So Josh Giddey in a good spot from the Oklahoma City Thunder playing the Utah Jazz. But if you want to save some salary at the point guard position, now remember LeBron James is out. So that's going to open up a lot of opportunity for other players on the team. And one of those guys who's going to get that extra opportunity is Austin Reeves from the LA Lakers playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have the 10th worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing point guards. Austin Reeves has averaged 19.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 28 minutes per game with a 15% usage rate. So he's projected at right around 20 fantasy points, and that's just about 5 times value. He's 4,100 DraftKings salary, 1,000 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 228.5 points scored in this game, and Austin Reeves has scored 27, 34, and 17 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 24, 27, and 27 minutes. So he's been on fire the last 3 games. And he's got pretty good history versus the Timberwolves. Scored 25, 18, and 21 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Timberwolves. So Austin Reeves should get some extra opportunity. And even his season averages are looking pretty good here for his price point and his matchup. So I like Austin Reeves here versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay, I think I jumped the gun with Austin Reeves. I should have given you him at the shooting guard position. But either way, he is eligible at the point guard position as well. So the real point guard for the Lakers that's going to get extra opportunity is Dennis Schroeder from the LA Lakers playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have the 10th worst defense overall, give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Dennis Schroeder has averaged 24.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with an 18% usage rate. He's projected at 29 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's 5,800 DraftKings salary, 1,000 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 228.5 points scored in this game. And Dennis Schroeder has scored 44, 29, and 29 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 37, 32, and 34 minutes. So what I like about this pick is even with LeBron James playing, Dennis Schroeder has been hitting 5 times value. So with LeBron James out last game, Dennis Schroeder he put up 44 fantasy points in 37 minutes. So you can see right away getting a boost in minutes with LeBron James out. He played 37 minutes, season average of 31. So I think we can expect Dennis Schroeder to be putting up 35 plus minutes for the foreseeable future. And Dennis Schroeder, he's one of those guys, he can be hot, he can be cold. He's kind of a hit or miss player, but he's been playing well lately. And he's got a good matchup here tonight. So I like Dennis Schroeder here versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. So both Devin Booker, Josh Giddey, also eligible to shooting guard position. Now take a look at Kelly Oubre Jr. And he's only on my radar because of the injury, an unfortunate injury to LaMelo Ball from the Charlotte Hornets. So LaMelo Ball going to be out for the season. Kelly Oubre Jr. will be starting for the Charlotte Hornets, and he played 38 minutes last game, put up 42 fantasy points. Now that was a really good game for him, but if he's going to be playing 38 minutes a game, which might be the case moving forward, Kelly Oubre Jr. is in a position to put up some pretty big numbers here while his salary is still reasonable. So Kelly Oubre Jr. from the Charlotte Hornets playing the Orlando Magic, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, give up the ninth most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Kelly Oubre Jr. has averaged 32.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 27% usage rate. He's projected at 32 fantasy points here tonight. I think that projection is way too low for the extended minutes that he should be playing. So I'm going to up that projection to, let's just call it 36 fantasy points. And then let's go back to the shooting guard position. Go back to Kelly Oubre Jr. I would love it if this would update live without having to refresh the page. We'll look into doing that. That would be super handy to be able to, on the fly, just change their projection and see what their projected value would be as a result. We should get that in there. So Kelly Oubre Jr. At 36 fantasy points is 5.5 times value. Now Kelly Oubre Jr. is averaging 1.02 fantasy points per minute while he's on the court. So if he's on the court for 38 minutes, if he puts up his average, that would be 38 fantasy points. So that would be about 5.7 or 8 times value, close to 6 times value. So good matchup here, and also good team history versus the Magic. Kelly Oubre Jr. scored 34, 19, and 26 in his last 3 games versus the Magic. And my guess is that was in 25 to 30 minutes. So I like Kelly Oubre Jr. here versus the Orlando Magic.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won. And then we'll send you $25 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. So I like Harrison Barnes from the Sacramento Kings playing the LA Clippers, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They've been good versus opposing small forwards, but Harrison Barnes has averaged 25.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He's projected at 26.5 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.8 times value. He's 4,600 DraftKings salary, 1,000 more on FanDuel. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 242 points scored in this game. Harrison Barnes has scored 48, 28, and 26 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 37, 32, and 40 minutes. So plenty of minutes, and the production has been pretty good, ramping up in a big game last game. So I think Harrison Barnes should really be priced around 5,000 DraftKings salary. So I think he's underpriced on DraftKings. FanDuel might have him priced right. So Harrison Barnes, let's see how he has done against the Clippers. Not too bad. 26, 21, 18, 10, and 28. 3 out of those 4 games over 20 fantasy points. 2 out of those 5 would he have returned over 5 times value? Maybe 3. 3 out of those 5. So pretty good odds here that he will return value, and he does have a chance to score over 30 fantasy points and get a ton of value here. So I like Harrison Barnes here versus the LA Clippers. Okay, another small forward that I like, who I think is also underpriced, is Bogdanovic from the Atlanta Hawks, playing the Portland Trailblazers, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, middle-of-the-pack defending opposing small forwards. Bogdanovic has averaged 26.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. Now, he's projected at 20.6 fantasy points here tonight, but let's assume here that he gets his season average of 26.5. That may be projecting him a little bit high, but he's certainly capable of putting up 26.5 fantasy points, considering that's his season average, and that's 5.9 times value. Only 4,500 DraftKings salary. Now, he is 1,500 more on FanDuel, so priced right on FanDuel, but underpriced on DraftKings. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 241.5 points scored in this game. So a high-scoring game. Bogdanovic has scored 23, 40, and 17 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 19, 28, and 22 minutes. So the concern there, I guess, is the minutes. Is he going to play 19 to 22 minutes, or is he going to play 28 to 29 minutes or 30 minutes? So there's a big range there. It's going to affect his production by 30% if he's playing 30% less minutes. So let's take a look at his scoring log and see how many minutes he's been playing. So last game, 19, then 28, 22, 23, 31, 26, 22, 30, 30, 25, 24, 32. So it looks like it's very difficult to predict if he's going to play 20 to 24 minutes or 28 or 26 to 32 minutes. There's a big gap between those 2-minute ranges. That's where you take the risk playing Bogdanovic over a guy like Harrison Barnes, which is pretty much penciled in for his 32 plus minutes. Whereas Bogdanovic, if he does get his 29 minutes here, he's averaging 0.92 fantasy points per minute. Harrison Barnes only 0.79 fantasy points per minute. So you can see if you get Bogdanovic for close to 30 minutes, you're going to be in good shape here. Potential 6 times value or more. So I like Bogdanovic, who actually has played very well versus the Portland Trailblazers. So that bodes well for his chance to play more minutes. So he scored 42, 26, and 41 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Trailblazers. So I like Bogdanovic here versus the Portland Trailblazers. Okay, another small forward that I've got my eye on here tonight, and I might even like him more than Bogdanovic and Harrison Barnes. Take a look at Keegan Murray from the Sacramento Kings, playing the LA Clippers, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Keegan Murray has averaged 23.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. He's projected at 24.3 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.4 times value. He's 4,500 DraftKings salary, 1,500 more on FanDuel. So all three of these guys, I really like their DraftKings price. They're all priced right about what they should be on FanDuel. So they're priced up on FanDuel as they should be. So I also like this pick because Vegas thinks there's going to be 242 points scored in this game. So a high-scoring game. And Keegan Murray, he scored 37, 39, and 28 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 36, 31, and 42 minutes. So he's been a good shooter for this team, and he has been super productive with his minutes. Recently, he's been on fire, so it's a pretty good matchup here. High-scoring game. Keegan Murray and Harrison Barnes could go either one, or I could even play both of them, I think, if you wanted to get both of those value plays from this team. I do think that's an option. So another small forward that I like, even less expensive here, is Trey Murphy from the New Orleans Pelicans, playing the Golden State Warriors, who have the 8th worst defense overall, give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Trey Murphy has averaged 22.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate, projected at 21.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.4 times value. He's 4,000 DraftKings salary, 1,200 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 227.5 points scored in this game, and Trey Murphy has scored 27, 17, and 17 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 31, 20, and 27 minutes. So Trey Murphy here, he scored 27 and 29 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Warriors, which leads me to believe that he's got some decent upside here.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
I think he's a decent play. Obviously some risk where he could come in and put up a 17 fantasy point game and not hit quite 5 times value, although it would be pretty close actually. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of ways that he'll burn you, and he's got some good upside at only 4,000 DraftKings salary. If you do need to squeeze out that extra 500, then you can't afford Keegan Murray or Harrison Barnes. I think he would be a good fill-in to your lineup. So lots of good small forwards on the slate here tonight. I've lost my place. Where are we? Here we are. Trey Murphy. So I like Trey Murphy here versus the Golden State Warriors. And another guy you want to look at only 4,000 DraftKings salary is Bruce Brown from the Denver Nuggets, playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. Now, they've been good versus opposing small forwards. Bruce Brown has averaged 24.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He's projected at 20.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's also only 4,000 DraftKings salary, 1,300 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 234 points scored in this game. Bruce Brown has scored 26, 27, 18 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 27, 29, and 24 minutes. And he's got a pretty good team history here versus the Grizzlies. He scored 18, 32, 32, 38, and 10 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Grizzlies. And I think that that's what drew me to this pick, was those big 30-plus fantasy point games, 3 out of the last 5 games versus the Grizzlies. That would be monster value. So I like Bruce Brown as a value play here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. So another value play with good upside here. I like Al Horford from the Boston Celtics playing the Brooklyn Nets, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing power forwards. Al Horford has averaged 25.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 12% usage rate. He's projected at 25.7 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.6 times value. So he looks underpriced to me at only $4,600 DraftKings salary, and he's $1,100 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 228 points scored in this game. Al Horford has scored 47, 19, and 28 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 32, 27, and 32 minutes. So playing a ton of minutes I would think Al Horford would be playing not an average of 31 minutes per game. I think he'd be playing like 26 minutes a game or something. But no, he's playing over 30 minutes a game on average. And he is averaging 0.83 fantasy points per minute. And he put up 47 fantasy points last game in 32 minutes. So we know he still has that monster upside. And it's not a back-to-back here. It's a middle-of-the-road matchup. And he scored 21, 22, and 23 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Brooklyn Nets. So nothing crazy or fantastic there in terms of player versus team history. But I do think he's a good value play, especially on DraftKings. So I like Al Horford here versus the Brooklyn Nets. Okay, moving on to the center position. Even though this is a bad matchup, I continue to like Mitchell Robinson from the New York Knicks playing the Miami Heat, who have the second best defense overall, and they are very good versus opposing centers. But Mitchell Robinson has averaged 25.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 27 minutes per game with a 10% usage rate. Now, he's projected at 27.9 fantasy points here tonight, so that is over his season average, and that would be 5.5 times value. He's $5,100 DraftKings salary, $1,600 more on FanDuel, so I love that DraftKings price. Now, Vegas only thinks there's going to be 216 points scored in this game, so not a super high-scoring game, but Mitchell Robinson doesn't need a high-scoring game to get value. He scored 33, 35, and 30 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 25, 31, and 28 minutes. So I like Mitchell Robinson here versus the Miami Heat.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.